2005 Dodge van. So this has the aftermarket rear system on it. In the video previous, I explained what I found before, and the fill procedures on this one are a little bit different than the OEM. This was at high idle, so this was at like 1700 RPMs. It'd get down to 43, 44 PSI. You can see right there. Let's see, get the old Apple to focus there. And now I have it at idle, and we're at 53 degrees. Dual AC system. Come back to the pressure, and we lost it. I think my tool turned off on battery saving mode. And let's turn that back on and take a look. I wanted to show you something a little bit different between front and rear superheat. Turn it back on. Oh, this thing is hot. So our superheat right now is 6.5, and 6.5, you can see the water sweating here. We got water. And that's from the front expansion valve, from the front evaporator. Here's the expansion valve, H block, comes right down here at idle. That's what it is right now. The rear is located right here. This is the rear, from the rear. Now watch the superheat from the rear evaporator at this point. We're picking up a lot of heat because we have like 15 or 20 feet of hose going, snaking all the way to the rear unit. And look at this, we got a superheat of 48. Now let's take a look at some temperatures coming out of the rear. I noticed at high idle that this thing was going down to like 19, 14, I think even. PSI, which for dual expansion valves under a hot condition is unusual. It should have been usually a little higher than that. Now let's get over to temperatures. Here we are right here. We're using the temperature sensor right here. Let's take that out of there. And let's go into rear. And I think I found some oddities back here. So the closest unit will be the coldest one, with the ducting coming up the back, and they go over the roof. Now the roof of a vehicle is really hot, so you have your ducting traveling over the roof. Here we go, we're 64 degrees right there. And let's go over to this one. So this one must be further. So I'm gonna say that the AC unit is down on this side over here, and the ducting is going up and over, and it has a short run to here. That's why it's colder right here, but it has a longer duct run across the hot roof, and it's a dark green, and it comes over here and it's 68 degrees. Now let's move forward farther away, and let's come to this one way up here. So now I'm going to put it here. So now we're right there. Now we're really far away. 68 degrees. Now let's come over to this one on this side. That's should be the furthest right there. And let's see what our temperature is. 69. We only picked up one more degree. So as you see, the farther you get from where your evaporator is, your ducting picks up heat from the hot roof. The heat radiates to the metal, dark green paint, and then above this ceiling here, it's nice and hot, and so you pick up a little heat. But this is what I noticed, what concerned me a little bit. It's working, but I believe it could get better in the rear. Oh, actually, let me keep this in the rear. I'm gonna put this back in the coldest one, way back in that corner. We're gonna raise the RPM and see what the capability. Now, it's not blowing really good. This is not really a great system. I don't know if it's their installation, the way they ran the ducting, and I can't get this up here. These are really, I'm gonna say, not great. Come on, which way am I? Usually could get this to go up. Nope. There we go. All right, so that's the one that was the coldest. So we're going to use that as the reference point. Now we're going to raise the RPMs and see what it comes down to. Now, superheat. Let's get back to superheat. I think we had, what was our superheat in the front? Was really high, 69. So right now I have it clamped on to the AC line to the rear evaporator. Now if I was connected to the rear, it's probably 30. I think that rear expansion valve is not feeding correctly and is restricted. And I have a suspicion because this van has been sitting here in the sun. It's hot, the interior is still hot. Both expansion valves should be wide open. With both expansion valves wide open, the suction side should be up because they're releasing the pressure from the high side, feeding it into the low side, and they're flooding. They're trying to flood. But this rear evaporator is starving. And let's go back to the temperature. 58 degrees out the rear. That's from that rear right there where you see the temperature sensor. And my low side pressure for this temperature is too low. And I'm kind of warm coming out the rear. It's been running for a while. I have it at high RPMs. I'm holding it up. And we got a little choke off in the rear, but it's working. Most people would put their hands up there and say that's good enough for government work. Now, if I took one of my remote clamps, if I remove the wired temperature probes off of there, that's on the rear hose, and I took a remote one and I went underneath the vehicle to the evaporator and I hooked it on the suction line, you would see the superheat fall where it's saying 68. You would see that fall, but I'm still thinking if I did do that, I would probably still see about a 30, maybe a 25 superheat for this vehicle, for these expansion valves, for this setup would be too high, telling me that the rear expansion valve is not opening up all the way. And so they're losing a little cooling capacity. But it's what most shops would say is good enough for government work. So I'll let the customer know that. They're buying, selling, and I think flipping this vehicle. So I don't think he's concerned. He just wants the customer to feel cold and say it's good enough for a sale. And I usually don't deal with people who flip cars and sell cars and stuff like that, especially if that's their profession, because it's a little, they consider me a little expensive. They usually like the guys who just squirt in a little refrigerant and say, here's 75 bucks, good enough for government work, or good enough for the slums. But we're gonna leave off on that. But did you see that? How the superheat on the front is at 5 to around 17, and the superheat on the rear, here we're almost approaching 60. But that's picking up heat up here. I still know it's really high. And my low side is too low for this vehicle with this expansion valve setup. Little high on the high side. It's only 80 degrees outside. I think that's what it was. Where are we at? 82, 84 degrees. The wind is blowing out up there, and I'm actually taking the temperature is on that fence. Or no. Oh no, it's taking temperature from the S-Man. Okay, it's picking up the air blowing in front of the vehicle from the hood over the radiator, and every now and then coming up. But outside it's only roughly 70, like it says, 75 degrees. That is the outside true temperature. All right guys, I'll let you go for here. We have a system that works with a rear expansion valve that I know is not feeding as much refrigerant and controlling that it should have. I don't have time to do what I need to do. I got too much work to do today. But I would like to take the temperature clamp for the superheat and stick it on the rear evaporator under the vehicle by the rear tire and show you how this will drop all the way down to 30 or 25. On this vehicle, it should be somewhere around 10, 13, somewhere around there. So it's choking a little bit. See you guys. And that's the high side pressure. here's our temperature swing from when we were at idle and where we're at right now. On the rear, that's on the rear.